Well, it is game day for the Boise State men's basketball team, and it is completely up to the Broncos on whether or not this is their final game day on what has been a chaotic season. Welcome on into Jay Sports Bar. I'm your host, Jay Tuss. You know, Boise State returns to action in the NIT this evening, and it's a matchup Bronco Nation has never seen. For the first time ever, Boise State will take on the Memphis Tigers. This specific matchup happening in the quarterfinals of the NIT at 7 o'clock this evening. For the second straight Thursday, by the way, Boise State getting a prime-time tip-off on ESPN. You know, the Broncos enter this specific matchup one victory shy of hitting the 20-win plateau for the 9th time in 11 seasons under head coach Leon Rice. This 20th victory won't come easy, though. Memphis is 17-8 on the season, and much like Boise State, they were likely only one win away from qualifying for the NCAA tournament. The Tigers are long, athletic, and have statistically proven to be one of the better defensive teams in the country. Earlier this week, Leon Rice allowed us to look at this matchup through the lens of a head coach.
When you look at them, to me, they look like a top 3 seed in the NCAA tournament. I mean, they were close. They came on strong. I mean, I think their situation was a little bit similar to ours in the fact that they had Houston twice in the last week, and if they win one of those, they're probably in the tournament. And the first one was won by a half-court shot, so that tells you they were right there. You know, it's kind of like ours in overtime, and then the second one was right down to the wire too. So, I mean, it tells you how good they are because, you know, I know firsthand how good Houston is. And so, you know, they're a well-coached team. They play hard. Their defensive numbers are off the charts. That's what jumps out at you about them first and foremost.
You know, when Boise State took the floor a week ago, tipping off action in the NIT, they came out on fire, looking to snap that 4-game losing streak that spanned almost a calendar month. The Broncos jumped all over SMU, racing out to a 30-9 advantage. Clearly, this Boise State team is talented. Few will argue that. As it turns out, they simply decided to use some downtime to reestablish their confidence, as star guard Emmanuel Akot explains.
My favorite part, honestly, is, Coach Barsh's speeches and when he motivates our group and, teaches us about life lessons and teaches us how we can come closer together, continuously encouraging us and telling us, to communicate out there and just bringing us together as a team has been great. So I got to give a shout out to Coach Barsh. He really helped us.
You know, in that game, by the way, Akot posted 17 points to go along with 9 assists, a very rare stat line seen in the Leon Rice era. But the 6'8" point guard was referring to assistant coach R-Jay Barsh, who was on the verge of completing his second season in Boise. Akot's comments caused me to ask the question, what did Barsh tell these Bronco ballers last week? So I reached out and asked him. In addition to finding out that answer, Barsh and I also discussed our similar roots, having both been raised in Tacoma, Washington. I also discovered that he invests an incredible amount of time to better understand, motivate, and communicate with each player on this Boise State basketball team.
R-Jay, first off, how are things? Second trip to Texas in about a week. How's the Lone Star State?
It feels good to be back in Texas. That was the goal last week when we arrived the first time. So anytime you can set a goal and meet it, it's a good feeling. So waking up in Texas today was exuberating to walk in the hotel and see other teams, knowing that we still have opportunity to play for something special.
After the Mountain West tournament, you guys had about a week off before you actually tipped off in the NIT. And talking with Coach Rice, there was a lot of time that you guys got to spend as a team together. And asking Emmanuel Akot what his favorite thing was about some of that time, he mentioned some of the speeches that you had with the team. What were some of the things that you wanted to convey to the basketball team as they're getting ready for the NIT?
You know, Coach Rice does a really good job of setting up spaces for the coaches to be impactful to the players, and then vice versa. So really what I wanted to, talk to our team about, and really I'll be talking to my baby boy, is take advantage of what we have in our hand. And the only way to do that is to slow down, to acknowledge the work that you've put in to be in that space, but then acknowledge the people around you that you've worked with. Anybody that climbs to the top of the mountain gets there by themselves as a hiker. And that's not what we're doing as a team. We're trying to find a way to get to the top together. And so that means sometimes slowing down to help somebody, up the mountain, or that means stopping and following in somebody else's foot tracks. And all I wanted to do is simply what Coach Rice has been doing all year, is making sure that we take advantage of the opportunity that we have to just play the game. And Jay, I really believe the game of basketball is like a microcosm for life, and it's a safe environment for young men to learn life lessons. That's how I became who I am. And so I try to sneak in as many of those life lessons as possible while we're in the framework of coaching basketball.
One thing that I saw that you guys did last week was you went on an actual hike. So you talk about climbing a mountain. Is that just a coincidental metaphor, or was there an intentional purpose on that hike you went on to align with what you're saying?
I think I would say it was a coincidental intentional. So you drive in and you see the mountain, and you talk to, other guys on our staff, and, with Tyler and James Reed, guys who are with our guys so much from the weight room to player development. And we just kind of felt like what our guys needed was nature. One, Coach Rice is big about getting outside and breathing in that fresh air. But two, I wanted them to be able to take the moment that we would experience being outside, minus our cell phones, and just be in that moment, not worried about a game, not worried about classwork, not worried about anything except for the man to your left, man to your right, and just being outside and walking. There's something truly powerful about meditative practices. And when you do them in a corporate setting like that, I think it's powerful. And our guys, they know that because they see how I've kind of lived my life, the 2 years that I've been at Boise State, and some of the weird things that I do to get myself focused. And so I think they, sometimes they, help the old man out, say, okay, I believe in this for 5 minutes. And that's what I asked them. I said, hey, you don't have to believe in this. You don't have to agree with it. Just be open to learning. And I think when I said that, they were all open to learning. And Emmanuel Akot, being so cerebral and understanding how to see the big picture, I'm glad that he took all that in. And it's kind of like behind your head on the screen, you have the huddle of us, celebrating. No one knows the moment before that if they weren't at that game, but they can also tell that in that circle is a bunch of joy. So how do we replicate that joy every single day? By taking advantage of the great moments that we have.
When it comes to Emmanuel kind of acknowledging that, like that was completely unprovoked. I set up a very vague question, and that was the thing that he decided to cling to. So to hear that feedback and to hear that it's making an impact, again, an unprovoked answer, what does that mean to you? Because it's clearly hitting home.
It just means to me that Coach Rice, Coach Burns, Duryea, and everyone involved in this process, we've all laid down a little bit of our ego so that other people can have opportunities to be a star in their role. And one thing that I have been in love with since I can remember is helping others grow, whether that is in business, whether that is in a relationship, whatever. Just helping, I get a lot of joy out of that. And I also believe you play your best basketball when people are thinking that way, thinking clearly. So when Emmanuel Akot says that, it reminds me of the little conversations that we have that are not speeches that make that speech actually hit home. There's something that had to have happened to where trust was built, to where he actually listened in that one. And that's something that I try to remind myself, is to be consistent in my disciplines with my players, so that when I do try to convey a message, even if they don't agree with everything, they can trust it's coming from the right place. And so, and you might have also been talking to him right after we did it. So that could also be, I'm not sure, but sometimes it's a coincidental intentional.
It was right after the game. So I'm fairly,
wow.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain that it was on his mind. And right after he went for 17 and 9, which only a few people have done in the Leon Rice era in a same game. So it seems like you invest so much into the mental side of this. Can you tell when the team is ready to play and when there might be a red flag for concern? I know that Might not be the simplest question, but can you tell?
You know what? Sometimes you try not to tell. Like if you see things, you try not to buy into those things. At least I do, because wisdom is always great hindsight. I wish I would have done that. I wish I would have done that. What I try to do is get as many small conversations and touches in with guys throughout the day. Once we step into the arena and we're dressed ready to play, at no point am I trying to now turn a guy and get him ready to play. That work is done. Now I need to encourage that young man to be the best R-Jay he can be, to be the best Marcus Shaver he can be. And if that means excited for one guy or tapping one guy on the shoulder or making sure I say the right phrase to Derek Austin, those are the routines that I do. But I try not to judge by what they're doing physically before a game if they're ready to play, simply because the game is the game. I think it's the coach's job in general and the polos to get them prepared to be ready to play before those moments are magnified. And I think that's something as a staff we'll continue to get better at.
Body language obviously can play a big role in a team's success, it seems. I noticed on Twitter earlier this week that there was a tweet about Baylor and their body language, and they said that they track their body language. And I couldn't help but notice that you acknowledged it. So how closely do you look at body language, and do you believe that it is truly an indicator of success or potential success?
No, I'm 100% believer in body language, because there's something inside of our minds that helps us respond to things without us knowing we're responding until we knew we responded. And so when you put your palms up or when you raise your hands to the sky, those things mean something internally. And so I definitely watch for cues of body language, especially in pressure moments. And Coach Alvin Brooks at Baylor is a very close friend of mine, and we talk about these things in depth, from watching guys in moments where they're on fire to watching guys in moments where they struggle, reading that body language and not responding to it in the moment, more or less, but then sitting them down and saying, hey, this is what it looks like when this is happening. All right, so let's come up with something. So when you feel like your body language wants to surrender, you can change it to a different pose, because then now you're telling yourself you're in control. Like, you have to fight those things. I learned a lot of that from just studying, what happens when boxers are in a ring, and just their body language, their stance, and those types of things. I think they're very important.
Could you go into the boxing background? Why is boxing a good example or a good indicator?
I think boxing is a good indicator because your foundation's in your feet. And so no matter what you do with your mouth, your hands, your elbows, if your feet are not strong, if your foundation is not strong, you're going to tip over. And you also have to have your style and your approach. If you're a guy that runs out and tries to get the first punch, then by all means, you better do that and be consistently knowing what can happen on the backside of that. And so your body language is more or less aggressive. If you're methodical and you want to go to full 12 and you want to bob and weave, then there's a different approach to that. And I think as coaches, being in terms of boxing, being a corner man, or as coaches, our job is to find out what personality of a player we have, and then coach them from those lexicon of language of how to support who they are. And so for Emmanuel Akot, I'm coaching him a different way than I would coach Abu, because their approach to life and their approach to the game is different. And so for me, it's just studying the individual. And the reason I use boxing a lot is because it's one-on-one. And so you get to see a lot of the eye contact, the shoulders dropping, the shoulders leaning, and you also get to see the response to what happens when they win. And so that's an imperative in learning about the mind.
R-Jay, how much time do you have to spend to get to know each player so you know how to communicate and coach each player?
It's called notebooks. I got these right here, and I write in them every single day. For me, it's been, since I got into coaching, it's been the thing that I feel like I can do every single day, win or lose, championship or not championship, that will bring value in 10 years for the young man. And so I'm taking notes on guys. I'm writing down quotes. We had a Zoom earlier this year where I had all of them, Coach Rice and we had all of them send in their favorite Muhammad Ali quote. And then we had a conversation on those quotes. So I'll find a time and remind them, hey, you said don't count the days, make the days count, Max Rice. So how are you doing that today? So doing those little conversations, I've realized that it's powerful to have those touches with young men. And when I say touches, I mean like tweeting at them, texting with them, high fives in the hallway, running into them at the barbershop. Of course, everything with a mask on and social distance, but just figuring out a way to be a part of their life without being a distraction.
I brought up that Baylor tweet. Baylor's in the Sweet 16, clearly making a good run. You're a fellow 253 guy. I was born and raised in Tacoma, Washington, and every year during March Madness, not only am I keeping track of my teams, but I'm keeping track of the guys that come from our area. I'm curious, do you do the same at all?
When a guy from Tacoma, Washington has a good game, I know that my cell phone is going to get 1,000 text messages simply because, Coach Barsh, you see so-and-so, Coach Barsh, because Tacoma guards, Tacoma basketball players, there's just a sense of pride that they play with and a sense of just toughness that is just, it's invigorating to watch. And you always know when they get in those pressure moments, man, those guys have shown up. I think a lot of it goes back to the stars that we've had in Tacoma, the Isaiah Thomases, the Avery Bradleys, the Abdul Gaddis, the Curtis Allens, Curtis Terry, like those kind of guys. They hooped in the gym with the young players growing up. Like there was no, oh, I'm a pro, I'm a this. When I was assistant coach at Tacoma Community College, we'd have open gyms and you'd have Isaiah Thomas bringing up the ball and Abdul Gaddy running the corner, Rodney Stuckey trailing the play, Mark Axton posting up, all these different guys. So we just know, it's a very tight family. That I-5 corridor makes it very, very strong family ties when it comes to this basketball.
Yeah. I go back and, you had Emmett Matthews, went to Wilson High School, playing at West Virginia. Ja'Cory McLaughlin is now at UC Santa Barbara, and they came so close to getting that first round upset. Just missed out on it. John Reilly, another former Boise State assistant, Tacoma CC guy that you know as well. What is it about seeing someone make it out of Tacoma that brings out such pride?
I would say not necessarily making it out of Tacoma, but making it from Tacoma.
There you go. Because
because the Tacoma guys, I don't think we ever try to escape Tacoma. Like it's like we love it so much that we want to make sure people know we're from there because we're going back. And when it comes to the high school guys like Emmett Matthews and these other players that you mentioned, Ja'Cory McLaughlin, like my oldest brother is the head coach at Foss High School. And so I had a younger brother, Josiah, who played for me at Southeastern, graduated a few years ago, who played at Lincoln High School. And so the ties that we have in our community are so tight when it comes to the basketball. When you see another guy make it, you feel like it actually feels like you made it again, because there was a moment in time where you probably rebound for him, picked him up from open gym, or Ja'Cory's dad picked somebody up from open gym. It's a family affair for sure. But we definitely take the gloves off when we're in the gym together.
I was going to say, there's something about David Jenkins at UNLV when he makes a big shot, even if it's against Boise State, I get this torn little conflict, because I cover one team, but I'm proud for the guy from Tacoma that's clearly making it. I will say this though, you guys swept the Rebels this year. Yes. Growing up too, as long as we're talking about our roots, you guys are squaring off with Memphis and Penny Hardaway in the NIT on Thursday, and we kind of grew up at the same time. What do you remember about Penny Hardaway when you were a kid?
I remember Penny Hardaway being aggressive. I remember Penny Hardaway maximizing on the athlete being a brand. I remember that watching him, cross-pollinate his career from marketing to being an elite basketball player, and you never seen him get rattled. You try to find clips of him losing his temper and you just didn't see it. So I always respected him being able to move different in that way. I mean, dude's in movies, and then he's, in the NBA. Come on. He really showed a path of how to be an entrepreneur athlete And I always looked up to that, probably more than I did as a player. Now, I couldn't afford the shoes that he had out. I maybe borrowed a couple of my teammates when they had them, but I always looked forward to watching him in that Orlando Magic jersey.
How often is it that you run into an opposing coach that you really can use as a good example of what maybe you want your players to become one day as a player?
I think especially being African American, when you look at the landscape of coaching and you can see coaches that look like you that are in high leadership institutions and high leadership positions, and they're doing a great job of leading. And I think that's really good for our young men, and especially for me, when you see that. It's a powerful nod to the opportunities you should have and may have in the future when you're playing at Houston and you see Coach Sampson and his son running the sideline together, and then Alvin Brooks Sr., who's the dad of Alvin Brooks Jr. at Baylor, and you see those connections, guys you looked up to for so long, and now you're on the same sideline. My dad went to WSU, so I remember being a little kid running around the dorms at WSU and just knowing the Sampson name and what they're about. And those kind of moments are special because you tell your players it's bigger than basketball, but I don't know if that phrase really does true to the word. It's not bigger than basketball. Basketball is part of making it bigger, and just basketball is part of the process of making it bigger. And it's just really cool to see those things and respect those things. But I know this: when the 3 referees run out there and they throw the ball up in the air, we come out the ring and I don't really know who's on the other side.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like you said, the kids from Tacoma, once the ball goes up, it's game on. Getting back to Boise State, you guys were able to come home, maybe sleep in your own beds for a few nights, which I'm sure was welcome. See your boy Grayson and your lovely wife. How good was that for the soul? And what was the last week of practice like for you guys?
It was good coming home. It always is good coming home from a win as well, because your morale's a bit higher, and always good when your team's in a good place. And when I mean a good place, where they know they've worked hard and they've achieved something, but it wasn't easy. And so it was good knowing that we're in the trenches and we have another opportunity to work hard and have that feeling again. That was good. Seeing my little boy was phenomenal. He'd be pointing at the TV, and so he's used to seeing me in that TV screen. So being home and watching film with him is just a refresher. But it also was good for our players to see some of their families when we played in Texas. When these young men have really put a lot on the line and not had a lot of the amenities that normal college players have to put us in this position. The mental toll that college players have had to put their institutions in positions that we're in right now, they haven't seen their families like that. And so for Derek Austin to see his parents, from afar at the game, for R-Jay to see some of his friends there, those are big moments, and I know guys cherish those. And so as long as we keep winning and we're in Texas, we know that they can invite their families to the game.
Hey, maybe that's the motivation right there, R-Jay. I'm going to get you out of here on this one, though. You said the message last week was taking advantage of what's in front of you, and that was an opportunity to play in the NIT. So does the message change this week? I know that you have individual connections and relationships with each player on the team, but before Thursday tip-off, 7:00, what's one thing that you're going to try to drive home that you think will impact this team and maybe advance them onto the semifinals of the NIT?
The team. Let's just be the team. Let's have the most spirit. Let's have the most joy. Let's take the strategy and execute. At the end of the day, let's be about the team, and the team. If we do that, at the end when the zeros are on the clock, it'll still be about the team. And I think if we can rally around the team aspect of that thing, I think we'll put ourselves in position to have that huddle that you have behind your screen one more time.
A special thanks to R-Jay Barsh for dedicating some time and sitting down and talking. I really suggest you to check him out on social media. He's very easy to find. Just search his name. But he often says that he uses basketball as a vehicle to teach and influence people beyond the court, right? Well, I promise you that if you follow him, you'll be able to take the talking points that he pushes into the light and really use them and apply them to whatever you do professionally. With that being said, Boise State is looking to serve the greater good of the team, as Barsh would say, and attempt to climb that Memphis mountain this evening. Should Boise State falter, well, they would head back to Boise on Friday and the season would be over. If they win, they advance to the semifinals, and regardless the outcome there, Boise State would be guaranteed another game as the NIT has reestablished their third place game this season. They used to do that a couple of decades ago. This year, for at least this tournament, they're going to bring it back. Boise State is a 4.5 point underdog, so they are underdogs tonight. The over-under in this game is 143.5. If the over hits, I think that favors Boise State, and here's why. A low-scoring game will favor Memphis. The Broncos are 1-6 this season when they fail to score at least 70 points in a game. By the way, the Tigers, they have held 18 of 25 teams under that threshold so far this season. So, with that being said, be sure to enjoy this game day because who knows if it'll be the last. Once this chapter does officially close on the court, I'm going to start to really dive into some spring football talking points, like fans being allowed at the Boise State spring game. Some pretty good news that Boise State recently revealed. Until next time, though, I'm Jay Tusk, serving the Idaho sports scene right here on Jay Sports Ball.